The message from the stars. The distress signal arrived on a Tuesday morning. Dr. Sarah Chen was drinking her third cup of coffee in the communications lab when the computer started screaming. Not beeping. Not chirping. Screaming. A sound that made her drop her mug and run to the console. "What is that?" her assistant James called from across the room. Sarah's fingers flew across the keyboard. The signal was coming from deep space. Far beyond anything humans had ever reached. The pattern was clear. Deliberate. Someone was calling for help. It took 6 hours to decode the message. When Sarah finally read it, her blood went cold. The message was from something called the Stellar Assembly. A group of alien civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. They were dying. Something was killing them. Something they could not stop. "They want our help," James said, reading over her shoulder. "But we just got to space 50 years ago. What could we possibly do?" Sarah looked at the star map attached to the message. Entire solar systems marked in red. Billions of lives already lost. "I don't know. But they asked us for a reason." The message went straight to the United Earth Council. President Michael Torres read it 3 times before he believed it was real. He called an emergency meeting. Every nation sent representatives. Everyone had the same question. Why us? General Catherine Blake had an answer. She was old, nearly 70, with white hair and scars that told stories she never spoke about. She had fought in the resource wars. She had seen humanity at its worst and its best. "They are desperate," she said simply. "Look at their request. They don't want scientists. They don't want diplomats. They want fighters. People who know how to survive when everything goes wrong. But their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours," a council member protested. "If they can't stop this threat, how can we?" Catherine smiled. It was not a happy smile. Technology doesn't win wars. People do. The will to keep fighting when everything says you should give up. That's what wins. And humans? She looked around the room. We are very good at not giving up. The vote took 2 days. In the end, it was unanimous. Earth would send help. But finding the right people was harder than anyone expected. They needed soldiers, yes, but not regular soldiers. They needed people who could think differently. Who could see solutions where others saw only problems. Colonel Marcus Wright got the job of finding them. He was 45 years old with dark skin and eyes that missed nothing. He had led special operations teams in places that officially did not exist. He knew where to look for unusual talent. He found Victoria Reeves in a maximum security research facility. She was 32 years old and had been building weapons since she was 16. Not normal weapons. Creative weapons. Things that should not work but did. The government kept her locked up because her ideas were too dangerous. "You want me to fight aliens," Victoria said when Marcus visited her. She had red hair tied back and fingers stained with chemical burns. "Why would I do that?" "Because you're bored," Marcus replied. "Because you spend every day building things no one will ever use. I'm offering you a chance to use everything you know against an enemy that has never seen anything like you." Victoria thought about it for exactly 5 seconds. "I'm in." Marcus found David Park in Seoul. David was a tactical genius who had won every war game simulation ever created. He was 28 years old and had been kicked out of 3 militaries for not following orders. He did not follow orders because he was always right and the orders were always wrong. "The Stellar Assembly has lost every battle for 2 years, Marcus told him. "They follow their rules. Their traditions. Their way of war. And they keep losing." David grinned. "So you need someone who doesn't follow rules." "Exactly." Marcus found Elena Santos in the Brazilian wilderness. She was a survival expert who could live anywhere. Desert. Jungle. Arctic ice. She could find food where there was nothing. Make shelter from scraps. She had spent 5 years alone in the Amazon studying how to survive with nothing. Space is just another wilderness, Marcus told her. Elena looked at the stars. A very big wilderness. He found Robert Chen, no relation to Sarah, in a hospital in Shanghai. Robert was a field medic who had saved more lives than anyone could count. He could perform surgery with basic tools in terrible conditions. He had once removed a bullet from a soldier's heart using only a knife and steady hands. "I save lives," Robert said quietly. "You want me to go to war?" "War is where people need saving the most," Marcus replied. He found them all over Earth. 12 people in total. All different. All experts in their own fields. All considered too strange, too difficult, too unconventional for normal military service. Marcus called them the Pathfinders. When they gathered for the first time in Geneva, they looked at each other with curiosity and suspicion. They were not a team. Not yet. They were 12 individuals who had spent their lives not fitting in. General Blake addressed them personally. "The Stellar Assembly has technology we can only dream about. Ships that move faster than light. Weapons that can destroy planets. Medical science that can cure anything. And they are losing." She paused and looked at each of them. "You know why? Because they forgot how to adapt. They have been comfortable for so long that they forgot how to be uncomfortable. How to improvise. How to survive." She smiled. "That's what humans do best. We survive. We adapt. We overcome." Victoria raised her hand. "What exactly are we fighting?" "We don't know," Blake admitted. "The Assembly calls them the Devourers. They appear without warning. They cannot be reasoned with. They destroy everything they touch. And they're winning." The room was quiet. Then David laughed. It was a strange sound in the serious atmosphere. "So we're going into space to fight an unknown enemy with unknown capabilities using technology we barely understand?" "Yes." David's grin got wider. "Finally. Something interesting. Journey to war." The ship that came for them was called the Harmonious Dawn. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Smooth curves of silver metal that seemed to flow like water. Lights that pulsed with colors humans had no names for. It landed in the Pacific Ocean and rose from the waves like a dream. The Pathfinders stood on the deck of an aircraft carrier and watched it approach. Even Victoria, who prided herself on not being impressed, could not help but stare. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Welcome to the new normal," Marcus said. The aliens who greeted them were called the Velethor. They looked almost human. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But their skin was pale blue and their eyes were too large and had no pupils. They moved with perfect grace, like dancers or flowing water. Ambassador Thel was their leader. He bowed when he met the humans. It was a gesture of respect that seemed genuine. "We are grateful beyond measure that you have come. The Assembly has waited long to meet humanity." "Why did you wait?" Sarah Chen asked. She had come as the scientific advisor. "You've known about us for how long?" 63 of your years, Thel admitted. "We watched you from a distance. Studied you. And we were afraid." That surprised everyone. "Afraid?" General Blake asked. "Of us?" Thel gestured for them to follow him into the ship. Inside was even more impressive. Walls that seemed to glow from within. Gravity that felt normal despite being on a ship. Technology that was so advanced it looked like magic. "Your species is very young," Thel explained as they walked. "You have only had space travel for a short time. But you have done things in that time that should not be possible. You went from first flight to landing on your moon in 66 years. The Velothar took 800 years to do the same. He stopped and turned to face them. You fight wars constantly. Among yourselves. For resources. For beliefs. For reasons that seem trivial to us. But in those wars, you innovate. You adapt. You find solutions to impossible problems. That capacity terrifies us. Because if you can do that to each other, what could you do to the galaxy? David spoke up. So you didn't contact us because you were scared we'd be too violent. Yes. But now you need that violence. Fel looked sad. Yes. We need it very much. The journey to the front lines took 3 weeks. 3 weeks traveling faster than light through a universe that was bigger and stranger than any human had imagined. The Pathfinders spent the time learning. About the assembly. About the war. About the enemy. The Devourers had appeared 2 years ago. No warning. No communication. Just sudden attacks on outer colony worlds. At first, the assembly thought they were raiders. Pirates looking for resources. They sent peacekeeping forces to negotiate. The peacekeepers never came back. More attacks followed. Bigger. More coordinated. The assembly realized this was not raiding. This was extermination. They mobilized their fleets. Thousands of ships with weapons that could turn stars into black holes. Ships crewed by soldiers who had trained for centuries. The Devourers destroyed them. How? Victoria asked during a briefing. She was looking at tactical data on a holographic display. These weapons should work. The math is perfect. You have overwhelming firepower. Fel nodded sadly. We do. But the Devourers do not fight like we fight. They do not follow patterns. Every battle is different. They adapt faster than we can respond. By the time we understand their tactics, they have already changed. Robert the medic asked the question everyone was thinking. How many have died? 42 billion beings across 17 worlds. The room went silent. 42 billion. The number was too big to understand. Bigger than Earth's entire population. All dead in 2 years. Elena spoke quietly. Show us what they look like. Fel hesitated. Then he activated the display. The hologram showed footage from a battle. At first, the humans could not understand what they were seeing. Shapes that moved wrong. Forms that hurt to look at. Things that seemed to exist in more dimensions than 3. They're not from our universe, Fel explained. At least, we don't think so. They exist partially in our space and partially in somewhere else. Weapons that work on normal matter pass through them half the time. When we do hit them, they adapt. Develop resistance. Change. Victoria was leaning forward, studying the images intensely. They're biological. Yes. We think so. But unlike any biology we understand. Good. Victoria smiled. It was not a nice smile. Biology has rules. Rules can be exploited. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near a planet called Sanctum. It had once been home to 6 billion Velothar. Now it was a battlefield. The humans looked at the view screen and saw a world on fire. Cities burning. Ships fighting and dying in the space above. This is the front line, Fel said. This is where we need you. Marcus looked at his team. 12 humans against an enemy that had killed billions. 12 people with no super weapons, no advanced technology, just their minds and their will to survive. All right, Pathfinders, he said calmly. Let's go to work. They armed themselves with weapons from Earth. Simple guns that fired simple bullets. Explosives that worked on basic chemistry. Tools that any human soldier would recognize. The assembly had offered them advanced weapons. Energy rifles. Plasma cannons. They refused. "We know how these work," Victoria explained. "We can fix them. Modify them. Make them do things they were not designed to do. Your weapons. We'd just be guessing." The drop ships took them to the surface. 12 humans and 100 Velethor soldiers who did not believe these primitive beings could help. The Velethor had fought the Devourers for 2 years. They knew what was coming. The humans did not. But they were about to learn. The first Devourer appeared at sunset. It came through a tear in reality, a wound in space that opened like a mouth. The creature that emerged was tall, maybe 10 feet. Its shape kept changing. One moment it had arms. The next moment tentacles. Its skin was black but also not black. A color that human eyes could not quite process. The Velethor soldiers opened fire. Energy weapons lit up the twilight. The beams hit the Devourer and passed through it like it was not there. "Adjust frequency," the Velethor commander shouted. The weapons changed pitch. This time the beams connected. The Devourer screamed. It was a sound that made everyone's teeth hurt. Then it charged. It moved fast. Impossibly fast. It killed 3 Velethor soldiers before anyone could react. The rest fell back in formation, firing in coordinated patterns they had practiced for centuries. The Devourer adapted. Its skin changed, became reflective. The energy beams bounced off. It killed 2 more soldiers. Then Victoria shot it with a regular bullet from a regular gun. The bullet punched through the creature's changing skin and out the other side. Black liquid sprayed. The Devourer turned toward her, confused. It had adapted to energy weapons. It did not know what to do with kinetic force. David was already moving. He threw a grenade. Old-fashioned high explosive. It detonated at the Devourer's feet. The blast tore through its lower body. The creature fell. Elena was there with a knife. Not an energy blade. Not a plasma cutter. A steel knife that her grandfather had carried in a war 70 years ago. She drove it into what she hoped was the creature's head. Black liquid poured out. The Devourer stopped moving. "They're not invincible," Marcus reported calmly into his radio. "They just haven't fought anything primitive before. They adapted to your advanced weapons. They don't know what to do with ours." More tears opened in reality. More Devourers came through. The battle was just beginning. But for the first time in 2 years, the assembly had hope. Because 12 humans with old-fashioned weapons were doing what thousands of advanced soldiers could not. They were winning.